I want to talk about usability testing. So, what is usability testing? We're evaluating a product or service by testing it with representative users. These representative users is what's important. If you're designing a learning management system, you want your users to be students or faculty or staff, but you want it to make sense. If you're making an app for older adults, then you don't want college students. So you really want your users to be representative of what you're testing, of who your users will be. So usability testing will tell us whether a user can use the product as intended, whether a product allows a user to reach their goal, how a user uses a product. So it's not how we think they should do it, because as designers, we sometimes we think we know what they'll do, but you want to make sure and know for a fact how they're actually going to use it. And designers are not users. And this will help us find bugs and the different complicated user experiences so that we can improve it. So we want to evaluate the design. So basically, you don't know how good a user interface is until you try it out. And when you try it out on people, that's how you know if this is good. You might want to test it and change it and then try usability testing multiple times. And that's okay. It's an iterative process where you include your users from the beginning in order to see how the design is looking. Is it improving? So Amazon added a coupon code and lost money. Why did they lose money? Because without watching users, you'd think, okay, it's great to have a coupon code. But when they watched the users, they realized that having that feature ended up making people go search, leave the tab, go to another tab, and search for coupon codes, and then you don't come back. Once people leave a site, they don't necessarily come back. So what do we want to find in usability testing? We want to check, is the interface usable? Is the user satisfied? Is the user's experience pleasant? Is the user happy, frustrated, angry when using the interface? You want to watch them. By observing them, sometimes you can see if they're like really frustrated and not sure what to do. If they're really happy, you can also ask them some questions to gauge this as well. Usability testing is really, really popular. And I know we spoke about heuristic evaluation, and that's where you have HCI experts, but usability testing is where you have your users. And that's even more important because at this point, your users are really the ones who are going to be using it, and you want to see the usability. So you have this researcher, and they're asking the participant to do specific tasks and to complete these tasks while the researcher observes. In usability testing, representative users are trying to do these tasks, and the researcher might be taking notes, watching, and listening. So there's three parts of usability testing, of why we do it. We can uncover problems. We can discover what are the problems in our design. We can also discover opportunities. So now that we know these problems, what can we do to fix it? We could figure out how to improve our design. And we can also learn about users and their behavior and preferences. So designers aren't perfect. And without involving users in the process, it's really hard to make a really good design. But by watching users and seeing how they use the design, we can improve it and make it something that they want to use. So typically you'll have some type of introduction before you start, like, hey there, I'm so-and-so, and I'm a researcher at so-and-so, and thank you so much for talking with me today. I'm really excited to have a conversation with you. During this session, we are looking to ... This session should take no more than 30 minutes, so you'll have some type of introduction. Usability testing, there's a facilitator who might be the researcher, but the person who's leading it. There's the tasks, and then there's the participant. Now, the facilitator is the one who's observing the participant, maybe interviewing the participant after, and the participant is giving this feedback to the facilitator. And the participant is performing the tasks that the facilitator asked them to do. So what are the tasks? You ask a user to complete an action on your product. Think about the most important tasks. What are the necessary actions that every user should be able to do when they're on this? What are the goals of most users when they come to the site? What tasks do they need to do to accomplish these goals? What are their motivations for coming? So give them some realistic activities. You're considering opening a new credit card. Please go to the site and decide which credit card you might want to open. You've been told you need to speak to someone from project management and use the internet to find out where they are located. There's better and worse tasks. You can make tasks that are realistic, like a poor choice of a task would be, just get an orange Nike running shoes. But you could have a better task, like find shoes that are less than $40. You can make them actionable. So instead of, hey, go and get a movie for Sunday, you can say, find a movie that you'd be interested in seeing on Sunday afternoon. Instead of just saying, oh, tell me where to click next. So you can word it in a way that would be more suitable. Avoid clues. So you really don't want to be too specific. You don't want to tell them like, go to this website, sign in, and tell. You want to try to have a better one, which doesn't give you like the answer, but it's more like look up the results of your midterm exam. But you do want to be specific. Instead of saying like make an appointment with your dentist, it's make an appointment for next Tuesday at 10 a.m. with your dentist, Dr. Peterson. So you do want to be specific, but you don't want to like give away how to do it. Now, when you're observing someone, there's different ways to, like, you could, of course, bring a notebook and take notes. You can also, if you're, on Zoom, it's pretty easy to record the screen. So you can record, and you could also have, there's screen recording software too that will capture what they did, how many misclicks. So you could be as fancy as you want. And you could have them think out loud. So thinking out loud is when the users will say what they're thinking and feeling and doing, and as they're doing the task. And you could objectively just take notes on what they say. And you might record the session too, so you don't forget. You might need to remind them to keep talking and tell us what they're doing as they're doing it. Now there's different, you can have qualitative or quantitative data. So you could, there's a lot more qualitative because you can observe them, write down what they're doing. You could ask open-ended questions too. So you can really discover a lot of problems for user experience. And this is much more common, but there's also quantitative usability testing methods. And here you can get metrics like, for example, the success of the task. Was it successful? The time on the task. How much time did it take them to do the task? And so there's a lot of quantitative measures that can be done as well. So quantitative versus qualitative. Quantitative is helpful, of course, and it can tell you, like, okay, it took them a long time to do this, but qualitative will really tell you what the problem is, why, what happened. And so they really go hand in hand, and it could supplement the quantitative ones. There's also quantitative scales. One example is the system usability scale, SUS, which is 10 questions that you rank from like strongly disagree to agree. I would use this frequently. I found the system unnecessarily complex. And there's different ways to even to rate SUS, and it has its own like scoring for it. So there's different, and it gives you a score between 100, and some of them mean average, and I'm not going to go into the details here, but what is a good SUS score, but this way it does give you a quantitative score on usability, which is really nice. So I've used this in some of my projects. Qualitative examples, so observations, open-ended questions, there's lots of qualitative data that you'll get. Now, there's different examples that you can use for usability testing. I've done a couple of different projects where we've designed a legal analytics website and have had users go through it with different tasks. Cancer Survivors with Disabilities project where we had a prototype, and this wasn't a website, this was evaluating the prototype, and we did it with usability testing, and we had them go through different scenarios too. And at the end of both of these projects, we used a system usability scale, and also asked open-ended questions like what they liked, disliked, what we should improve. And so we were able to learn a lot to make it better. Now, a controlled experiment is different than usability testing. Controlled experiments are more quantitative and require a larger number of participants, and you often are comparing something to a control group. So you had like the typical way you did something, a previous system, with your new one. So what's the difference when you hear terms like user testing or usability testing and controlled experiment? Usability testing is done early. It has like one interface early in the process, and it helps guide the design. And it's often qualitative feedback from users, very few subjects. You don't really need a lot. You can probably do it with like 5, 6. If you want to use the system usability scale, you might need more like 12, but it's really not large numbers, and you identify usability problems. A controlled experiment, you need a lot more people. Let's say you might have 50 people at each condition, and you have multiple interfaces that you're checking, and you are doing statistics to check if it's significantly better. And it's a lot more in-depth and stricter like than usability testing. It's a much stricter controlled protocol. Okay, and we're done.